Every year, for 2 weeks in July, the world's best tennis players descend on a quiet corner of southwest London and agree to follow rules that were written when Queen Victoria was still on the throne. Wimbledon is the oldest tennis tournament in the world. The first championships were held in 1877 on a croquet lawn, open to any amateur who paid 11 shillings to enter. 22 people showed up, 200 spectators watched the final, and somehow, 149 years later, it has become the most prestigious sporting event on the planet without changing very much at all. Let's start with the most visible rule, the one you notice the moment the cameras cut to center court. Everything is white, not mostly white, not white with a colored logo, almost entirely white. No colored trims wider than 1 centimeter, white soles on shoes, white headbands, white socks, white visible undergarments. In 2013, Roger Federer, widely considered the greatest men's player in history, was told to change his shoes mid-tournament because the soles were orange. He complied. Andre Agassi boycotted Wimbledon entirely from 1988 to 1990 because the dress code prevented him from wearing the colorful clothing central to his personal brand. Martina Navratilova said officials had gone too far when her blue-striped skirt was deemed non-compliant. Nick Kyrgios wore a red cap in 2022 and was fined. So why white? When the rule was first written in the Victorian era, the logic was practical. Sweat is more visible on colored clothing, and visible sweat was considered deeply improper. The rule was originally applied only to women because, and this is a direct quote, it was quite unthinkable that a lady should be seen to perspire. What began as a Victorian anxiety about bodily functions became, over a century, one of the most recognizable visual signatures in world sport. The second rule is even more unusual. There are no adverts on center court, not small ones, not subtle ones, none. In an era when every major sporting event sells every square centimeter of visible space to sponsors, Wimbledon's center court remains almost entirely clean. No rotating LED boards, no sponsor logos on the grass. This is called the clean court philosophy, and it is an explicit commercial choice. Forbes estimated Wimbledon forgoes roughly £60 million per year in advertising revenue by maintaining it. Their commercial director has said publicly that the objective is not to maximize short-term revenue, but to protect the long-term value of the brand. And the paradox is that it works. By selling less, they made what they do sell worth more. Wimbledon's sponsorship revenue surpasses every other Grand Slam, despite having fewer sponsors than any of them. Scarcity is its own form of premium. Then there is the language. Wimbledon does not have a men's and women's singles. It has a gentlemen's and ladies' singles. Those words are on the trophies, the official draws, the scoreboards. Until 2009, female players were listed on those scoreboards as Miss or Mrs., their marital status displayed to every spectator. That rule was quietly dropped, but the gentlemen's and ladies' framing remains. And on the subject of women, Wimbledon was the last of the 4 Grand Slams to offer equal prize money. It finally did so in 2007, 34 years after the US Open, which introduced equal pay in 1973 after Billie Jean King threatened a boycott. The argument Wimbledon used to justify the gap was that men play best-of-5 sets and generate more playing time. It was not considered convincing. In 2026, both singles champions receive £3.6 million, up from £700,000 when equal pay was first introduced. Finally, the grass. Wimbledon is the only Grand Slam still played on it. The French Open is clay. The US Open and Australian Open are hard court. Maintaining the grass is an exercise in obsessive precision. 100% perennial ryegrass, cut to exactly 8 millimeters every single day. Approximately 54,000 balls are used over the 2 weeks and replaced every 7 to 9 games. The surface fundamentally changes how the game is played: faster, lower bounce, rewards serve and volley, punishes heavy topspin. Every player spends the majority of their season on hard courts. They have 2 weeks to adapt. Wimbledon does not adjust to them. So why does any of this survive? The honest answer is that Wimbledon has made a calculation, consciously or not, that its rules are not a burden to its brand. They are its brand. The white clothing, the clean courts, the grass, the queue that snakes around the grounds every morning, these are not legacy inconveniences. They are the thing people are watching for. In a world where every sporting event looks increasingly similar, Wimbledon looks like nothing else. Whether that justifies every rule is a different question. The dress code caused genuine distress for female players dealing with visible undergarments, an issue Wimbledon only addressed in 2023 by finally allowing dark-colored undershorts. It took until 2023. That is worth sitting with, but the broader point stands. Wimbledon does not refuse to change because it cannot imagine changing. It refuses to change because it has decided, with considerable evidence, that what it is more valuable than what it could become. Welcome to ExpertiseDive. If you want to go deeper on any of these rules, drop it in the comments.